Hello, my name is Algorithm. I do YouTube's dirty work. I unsubscribe unsuspecting people from hunting, shooting and reloading channels. Please check your subscription to this channel. Don't forget to subscribe and like. That keeps me in a job.
Hey, welcome back to Chase's Everything Shooting. Today's episode is what's going on in the gunpowder and a gunpowder update. So let's get to it. Well, let's talk about upcoming episodes. And I have two upcoming episodes that I've been working on. One is polymer cased and polymer bullets. And the number two is reloading aluminum cases. Well, so let's just get to it. Well, you know, things are kind of going a little crazy in the gunpowder industry. And I kind of wanted to do an update on that and talk about what's happening, what's going on, and what we should probably expect. Now, if you have not been following my updates, please look at the description box below, can't speak today, and you'll see all the kind of the past updates, and that'll kind of give you a broader avenue of what is nitrocellulose, what's in the gunpowder, what's going on. Probably should go back to the first episode or second episode. That'll probably help you. But anyway, let's get to it. Well, what are we seeing in the gunpowder industry? Well, you know what? The way I see it, there's a fourfold problem. The number one problem is the cost of nitrocellulose. The number two problem is the Ukraine war. The number three problem is the tariffs. And number four is the general gun economy. Let's get to number one on that list. And that's the cost of nitrocellulose. Nitrocellulose is a major component of gunpowder. And it has a shortage going on. Now, I'm not going to go over everything that nitrocellulose is used for. You can do that in episode 1 or episode 2 of gunpowder updates, but it's used in a lot of different products. But you know, the big part about nitrocellulose and the shortage is where nitrocellulose is the most freely manufactured and exported. The top one exporter, the number one, is Thailand. Number two is China, and number three is India. So we know that those countries export the most nitrocellulose. Now, in the gunpowder industry, there are many other smaller manufacturers in different countries, but these are the top three, and really the top two exporters to the U.S. are Thailand and India. And we see some things going on right now in the nitrocellulose industry, and there's a shortage, and there's a big shortage. And we're seeing that throughout. Now, I don't know about you, but if you've been looking out there for gunpowder, it's kind of hard to find. It really is. So let's talk about why it's hard to find. Well, the gunpowder manufacturers have stated all along, well, there's a shortage of nitrocellulose, and we can't make all the different products that we used to make. And of course, that's shooting the price up because there's a shortage of nitrocellulose. Let's kind of talk about that shortage of nitrocellulose. The shortage of nitrocellulose is really being driven by several factors. Number one, the cost of nitrocellulose, and number two, the tariffs that are pushing the nitrocellulose cost way up. So the big part of the shortage is there's so many different uses of nitrocellulose. Then all of a sudden we've got these tariffs. And let's just really look at what those tariffs are doing. Thailand, the tariff is 19%. In China, the import tariff is 104 to 200%. It varies on how the usage of the nitrocellulose is being used. And number 3 importer is India, and they have now a 50% tariff. Wow. Does that say anything right there? That's definitely pushing the price up of nitrocellulose, which is definitely going to push the price up of gunpowder. And what do we do about that? Well, there's nothing we can do. President Trump has said we're going to definitely raise tariffs on the countries who tariff us the most. And of course, we know that China is probably the number 1 in there. But if you really look at it, India is in the top 5 or 6. So that really pushes up the cost of nitrocellulose. Now, we know that nitrocellulose is a major component of gunpowder. And the Ukraine war, can't speak very well today, is consuming gunpowder at a huge level. Now, if you go back and look, at the very first of the Ukraine war, they were shooting off 6,000 155 howitzer shells. Well, that's calmed down a little bit, but the issue we've run across is the United States government has been sending our inventory of 155 howitzer shells to the Ukraine at an unbelievable rate. And so the federal government has said, hey, we need to keep supplying them a huge amount of shells, but we need to bring our inventories that we keep for our personal defense up. And so that's really driven a crunch on nitrocellulose and gunpowder. Because, it is what it is. The government's going to get what they want. They started off back about 8 months ago, and they said, we're going to have 5,000 shells made, 155 shells made a month. Then it was 10,000. Then it was 20,000. Well, now we're looking at 75,000 155 howitzers shells being made a month. And they are hitting that goal right now. So that is a huge consumption of gunpowder, which is a huge consumption of nitrocellulose to make that. So that is one of our issues that we have right now is that the federal government is absorbing huge amounts of gunpowder. Now there's naysayers out there, and I've seen them come up. Well, it really doesn't make any difference. The government, no. From my connections in Washington, D.C., it is a huge issue. The consumption of all that gunpowder. Now remember, gunpowder is not only used for the 155s, it's used in various shells. We're going to talk about 9mm, the 5.56. You're talking about mortars. Mortars are fired with gunpowder that's in a little ring. So there's a lot of consumption being made by the federal government to bring our inventories back and to help supply the Ukraine. Well, now we've all seen that there's these peace talks going on, and we think that that Trump's going to pull this off. Well, I hope he does. I really hope he does. I'm not so sure that he's going to pull it off as fast as what people would really like to see. We have Putin, who's out there, that really, we're hurting him a little bit with our sanctions, but we're not killing him. We're not getting to a point where he has to stop the war. So my personal opinion is, I'm not so sure that we're going to be able to keep doing what we're doing. Now, we're going to talk about the tariffs, and we kind of have, but they're a huge portion of what's going on in the gunpowder industry. And just know that that is an issue, and until we get that under control, the prices are going to be very, very high. But the inventories are going to be low. And I don't know if you've noticed it, but a lot of the gunpowder manufacturers have started trimming down their SKUs. And the SKUs are the codes, they're stocking code numbers. And so, they're going to start using the gunpowder that they can get. They're going to manufacture what sells the best. So those SKUs are dropping very, very quickly. And if you look online, and I did a little research, that the amount of gunpowder that's for sale online right now is about 40% of what it has been. So what that means is that in inventory, the gunpowder that the online websites have, it's 40% of all the SKUs. So that means there's 40% of the powder generally being made, and they're making it only for the top selling products and their line. That makes a big difference. And so that's going to affect the price and the availability of gunpowder. So now let's get to the third, which is the general gun economy. And I don't know if you guys are watching this at all, but the general gun economy is pretty strong right now. And let me tell you why. It's because people are not afraid of President Trump. They know that President Trump is a hardcore Second Amendment. Now, he's fluctuated a little bit on certain things, but he is very strong in the Second Amendment. And so people aren't panic buying. They're not worried about Trump taking their guns or taking away their ammunition or creating major problems. Really, to the contrary, what we're seeing is the Department of Justice has dropped a bunch of lawsuits that were creating problems for manufacturers. They're dropping a lot of the lawsuits for a lot of different products within the gun industry. So the gun industry is starting to go, wow, that's great for us. Well, which is slowing things down, because those of us out here, we're not worried about having the products available to us. We are a little bit. Gunpowder is getting a little harder to find, and the SKUs are dropping, and our favorite gunpowder isn't probably being manufactured. I know what I use, Red Dot, Alliance Red Light Dot, in my shells and my shotgun shells. That's non-existent. And why is it non-existent? I don't know for sure, What I feel is that since they sold the Kinetic group to the Czechoslovakia group, they're really not interested in gunpowder sales. They're interested in gunpowder that they can put in their own products. So they're not really going to support the retail market, as I've said all along that they're not. So in a nutshell, things should be getting better. Prices are going to go up for gunpowder, but things should get better here in the next 6 to 12 months. We'll do another update and we'll find out. Hey, thanks for watching. And hey, don't forget to subscribe. And if you don't want to subscribe, please like, because that helps. Thanks a lot.